Let's get right into it. And of course, one of the things we're always struggling with are passwords. And there's nothing worse than struggling with passwords that just aren't good enough.
So this story is not a surprise to me. There's a company or a group called Splash Data, and what they do is they do a yearly review of the most popular passwords for each year. This year they're basing it on breach data, exposed passwords from that, which is a pretty good sampling, probably about as good as you're going to get without actually having your own database of user passwords, which you shouldn't be keeping ClearProtect's passwords around, but in case someone does breach them, you can take a look at them and decide which ones are most popular. And
before you get too far, I want to make sure that we make the distinction here. Now, Jim Clausing, he just doesn't happen to be here today, but he's often done a report on passwords that we see guessed against systems. And this is very distinct. These are passwords that people have actually, they've got in the system they're using and just happen to be encountered one way or another and statistically assembled together. So.
Now, do we know if it's from data breaches mostly?
From my understanding is they take a look at the lists of the breaches and passwords from those and use this to build out their list.
Okay.
Now, they've been doing this for several years, and they've released the 2014 list, and there aren't too many surprises on this list, in my opinion. The ones that are, you would probably guess them first. Password is still on the list. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. All those clever variations on the same theme are still on the list. And most of these lists would be in a regular dictionary attack. They're very common. And when you were saying a second ago that these are the passwords we see most commonly guessed, I will bet you money that this list, now that this has been released for this year, people who are doing password guessing attacks are going to be modifying their lists and prioritizing these over other ones because it makes sense.
More than likely the case, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, to the extent that they don't have, clearly when there are new ones, they're probably going to add those in. They probably have their passwords that they have at the top of the list that are, statistically have been successful for them. So most likely are going to stay at the top of the list. But as you point out, it's most likely those are going to get added in. There were some. I was surprised how much they've changed, and maybe the sampling that Splash Data is able to get is not really a good statistical sampling. There's a good possibility there's some biases associated with the data that they are able to get hold of.
Most likely, if you take a look at maybe the communities that did get breached and their set of interests. For example, we've got Superman, Mustang, Master, Batman. And if I'm looking for Superman and Batman, I have an idea of the kind of community that might have been breached. I don't know exactly which ones they came from.
Probably not Sony Pictures.
Probably not.
I mean, maybe it was. I don't know. I'm just guessing here. Could be.
So I think the important thing to know here is that these are the same kinds of passwords that have been used over and over and over. Any site worth of salt should be rejecting these as valid passwords. I've even heard of some sites taking these lists and using them as a blacklist and saying, you're on the list.
You're not allowed to use this.
You are definitely going to get owned. You cannot use this as a password.
And I think that's a very good thing to do, to blacklist passwords. That's probably more valuable than trying to force a certain level of complexity, in my opinion. That is, having complexity in passwords is good, but there's a point where the level of complexity that you're requiring is not necessarily all that, I think, additionally productive. But my favorite one is Let Me In.
Yeah, we've seen that for forever.
I used that 20 years ago and have since learned that that's not one that you want to use. It's consistently on the top 20. So,
looking at the list though, there's some that I don't see that I think were for the longest time thought were the big few. You ever seen Hackers? I think there's a line in the movie where they say the most popular passwords are sex, secret, and God, and I don't see them on the list. So somebody learned something.
Somebody learned something.
Yeah.
But, you were mentioning password complexity there, and almost all of these passwords on this list would not be accepted by most reputable
even the
websites.
Most basic complexity
requirements.
Yeah, right.
Most of them require at least one uppercase character, some number. Sometimes a special character in there, which, I don't think any of these ones on this list here had any uppercase characters in them. Surprising. We know there's lots of, most real decent websites out there are forcing some kind of, extra, complexity in their passwords. But a lot of these other things like little embedded devices that we talk about, these Internet of Things, don't really have strong password rules, if any, on them whatsoever when you go to put a new password in. So some of that could be why some of these passwords are so often used too.
I wonder if they normalized it and if they took all the capitalization out or variations to make it a little more, just to make their point.
That's possible.
It's possible.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm not seeing it here in the article, but it's a possibility.
Okay. Well, always interesting, and perhaps we can get Jim to do a follow-up on what's been coming into the honeypot.
Yeah.
Do a little comparative analysis there.